In the vast and lonely waters off Scotland's western coast lie the Flannan Isles, a group of rugged, barren rocks battered by relentless Atlantic waves. And in December of 1900, these islands became the settings for one of the most chilling maritime mysteries in British history. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most alarming and enduring mysteries in maritime history, the case of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse, a story of 3 lighthouse keepers who vanished without a trace, leaving only strange clues and unanswered questions behind. Their disappearance has puzzled investigators, fascinated storytellers, and haunted historians for over a century. The Flannan Isles are remote and desolate, nowadays home only to birds and fierce winds. Thought to be named after St. Flannan, a 7th century Irish saint, these islands have long been the subject of dark legends, and for centuries people feared what might lie hidden in the mists. In 1899, the Northern Lighthouse Board built a lighthouse on one of the larger isles, Eilean, to guide ships safely around the dangerous waters. It was isolated and unforgiving, with waves crashing endlessly against its shores, and the lighthouse stood as a solitary outpost in a cold, indifferent sea. The keepers who were working at the lighthouse were James Ducat, principal keeper, Thomas Marshall, second assistant, and Donald MacArthur, who was an occasional keeper and was actually covering duty for another man, William Ross, who was on sick leave. Maintaining the lighthouse on Eilean was no easy task. It required the constant dedication of men who are willing to live on the edge of society far from their families, with only the ocean and each other for company. The island was nearly inaccessible, and the keepers lived in near isolation, so regular reliefs were carried out. But the lighthouse keepers were resilient men, trained to endure these lonely conditions. They rotated in shifts, which generally meant 3 on duty, with 1 as relief to ensure the light was never left unwatched. But in December 1900, this delicate balance was broken. A report was made on December 15, 1900, when a ship had passed the Flannan Isles lighthouse at about midnight and noticed that there was no light. However, this report was not passed on to the Northern Lighthouse Board, and the keeper's disappearance was only discovered when the Hesperus, a lighthouse tender, which is a vessel used to transport people or supplies, made a routine visit to the lighthouse on December 26th. On board was Captain James Harvey, accompanied by relief keeper Joseph Moore. They noted that the lighthouse flag was not flying and initially thought that perhaps the keepers had not seen them, so they tried sounding the horn and even fired a rocket from the ship, but got no response. Joseph Moore was then sent to investigate. As he approached the lighthouse, he could see no signs of life, no smoke from the chimney, or waving figures ready to greet the crew. When Joseph made his way to the entrance gate, he found it was closed, as was the entrance door to the kitchen and storeroom. He could see that the kitchen door was open, and once inside the kitchen, he checked the fireplace and could see that it hadn't been lit for a few days, and that the clocks had stopped. He also checked the bedrooms and found the beds empty. At this point, Joseph didn't stay to investigate further. He realised something was terribly wrong and instead headed back to the ship. He reported his findings to Captain Harvey, who sent him back to the shore with 3 other men so that they could temporarily man the lighthouse. They found everything in order in the light room and lit the lamp that night. The next day, they checked everywhere but couldn't find any trace of the men. However, 2 of the oilskins, which are thick coats used to protect against the cold, were gone. Strangely, the 3rd coat remained, meaning one of the men had gone out into the icy winds without any protection. This was very odd, not only because they wouldn't ordinarily have gone out without suitable clothing for the weather, but it was also against regulation for all 3 keepers to leave the lighthouse unattended at once. Now here is where fact and fiction seem to blur a little. We know that the lighthouse keepers kept a logbook in which they recorded their daily operations, and the last written entries in the book were the 13th of December. However, notes had been made on a slate for the 14th and 15th of December, suggesting that the men had likely disappeared at some point on the 15th. There are some reports that the logbook contains strange entries about severe weather and that one of the men, James Ducat, had become unusually quiet and agitated. Donald MacArthur, whom others considered tough and unfazed, was seen weeping on December 13th. Another entry allegedly said that all 3 men were praying, and the final log entry stated, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." I've spent a fair amount of time researching this case, and I cannot find definitive proof that these were ever genuine entries in the log, so it is likely that this is actually not true, and is simply part of the myth that has grown up around this mysterious event. There were many rumours about this case, such as Joseph Moore apparently seeing 3 large black birds. Some say they were perched on a cliff, others on top of the lighthouse, and still others say that they flew out of the lighthouse as he opened the door. Another rumour is that when he entered, he found an overturned chair and an uneaten meal on the table, implying that someone left quickly, but nothing in the research I've done has confirmed this to be fact. What we do know is that Joseph Moore and the other men who stayed at the lighthouse did a check of both the eastern and western landings and found damage on the west side, which was seemingly indicative of bad weather. Joseph Moore also wrote a letter reporting his findings and confirming that equipment was missing or found strewn across nearby rocks, as well as that iron railings had been bent and broken. The Northern Lighthouse Board launched an official investigation, and their superintendent, Robert Muirhead, arrived at the location on 29th of December. His conclusion was that the men had all gone down to the west landing on the Saturday afternoon to secure gear, and, as they were doing so, an unexpectedly large wave had swept them away into the sea. But this theory didn't sit right with everyone. People questioned how all three men ended up outside at the same time against protocol, and why did one man leave without essential clothing, knowing the risk? There was also no sign of a struggle, no belongings washed ashore. It seemed as though the men had simply vanished. The mystery of what happened to the three keepers of Flannan Isles has sparked countless theories over the decades. Some believe that the extreme isolation and loneliness of life on Eilean Moor led one or more of the keepers to madness. In such an environment, it wouldn't be impossible for hallucinations or paranoia to set in. One of the keepers, Donald MacArthur, was said to have had a reputation for being violent. If this were true, then could there have been a fight which had horrific consequences? And if that were the case, why were there no signs of any struggle? Other theories, verging on the slightly more wild and strange, point to the presence of strange lights or UFOs, or something haunting the Flannan Isles, giving a sense that the island was cursed. Some even believe that the men were abducted by spies or a ghost ship, or that they'd been carried away by a sea serpent. Could the men have encountered something inexplicable, something beyond the reach of rational thought? Today, over a century later, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse still carries out its job, its light flashing over those same dangerous rocks. However, in September 1971, it became fully automated, although it does still receive an annual inspection. The story of the three missing keepers endures, a testament to the powerful hold of mystery and legend. It remains one of Scotland's most puzzling disappearances, and there are still those who visit Eilean Moor, hoping to catch even a glimpse of its secrets. So what do you think happened? Was it simply a tragic accident, a rogue wave sweeping them away? Or is there a more sinister explanation buried in the cold, hard rock of the Flannan Isles? I would really love to hear your theories, and if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. Thank you for joining me on this journey to Eilean Moor, and for taking a few moments to remember the men who disappeared. They did leave loved ones behind, and it must have been truly heartbreaking for their families to be given such awful news. I'm grateful to be able to share their story, as it's through stories that we can help keep memories alive, and I'm grateful to you for sharing that with me. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember to keep the lights burning. Thank you for watching.